The Tennis Gambling Podcast and the Sports Game Podcast Network is brought to you by Onyx Fantasy. Sign up with the promo code SGPN to get 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast from the Sports Game Podcast Network. It is currently Wednesday afternoon on January 8th, roughly 1:20 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Rosso Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the quarterfinal matches in Adelaide and in Auckland. So we're going to preview all 8 of those matches in a second. For that, though, I do want to recap quickly what happened in the last episode, both the lock and dog picks, and then we'll recap the We'll go with the round of 16. I feel like there's no point in going past previous rounds, too. So, starting off with the lock and dog. Overall, great episode. Ended up sweeping as we ended up winning both the lock and dog picks. For the lock, we faded Bublik in the first set again. Took Kekmanovic first set money line at minus 130. Good starter in matches, and Bublik is really not. But Bublik had a classic moment where he didn't want to be there, and he got his ass kicked. So either way, nice and easy, really never in doubt. A nice win there by Kekmanovic. I believe he went up a break immediately and then coasted. So either way, nice win there for the first set. For the dog, though, we had the over 2.5 sets in the Diallo and Sonego match at plus 125. That got there as Sonego did win the first set. I believe via tie break. Then Diallo dominated the second set. So once again, a pretty sweat-free winner there. Then Diallo actually choked the match pretty heavily as he blew a 5-2 lead in the third, en route to losing the match. But not a problem. Point is, though, it was a nice and easy win for us as we needed Diallo to win the second set. He coasted, and then at that point, it was never in doubt. So once again, a nice lock and dog sweep. Hopefully, we'll keep it rolling here for the quarterfinal matches. Now, before we get into the actual recap of the round of 16, do want to remind you once again that you can show support for the show by liking, subscribing on YouTube, and remind you can also leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple on SGPN Tennis Gambling Podcast. Plus, a reminder to check the merch store. We have a lot of great Tennis Gambling Podcast merch with sweatshirts, t-shirts, and mugs, all high quality, all affordable. Recommend getting yourself something, not just for this show, but for the other shows with the network. Plus, a reminder, the NFL playoffs is around the corner, actually. Starts over the weekend, and a reminder that you should tune into the Sports Game Podcast for all of your NFL picks and props. Anyway, time to get into the recap of the round of 16. So we're going to start off with Auckland in this one. For the round of 16, Mensik ended up having a war against Shelton, which he ended up winning. Saw Borg just come back from a set down against Navone. I ended up seeing Baena beat Cerundolo. Cerundolo had not played since November, looked very rusty, and Baena was just too solid as he won in straight sets. Bergs beat Nardi in straight sets. Still not sure Nardi beat Djokovic, but point is Bergs had a nice win there from qualifying into the quarterfinals. Mickelson beat Sonego in straight sets. Basaveretti continues to look like a nice up-and-comer who could potentially be a top 30 guy in the world. Either way, though, beat Tabilo, defending champion, in 3 sets. Monfils beat Fees after barely surviving against Martinez in the first round. He looked great as he beat Struff in straight sets. And then you saw Diaz Acosta beat Baez. Main reason why we took Monfils to actually win the entire tournament, we thought that it was a very weak section with Baez being the main guy with the bye, and Baez was not a good hardcourt player, and then you saw Acosta get the job done there. So point is, you have Monfils as an outright that we have left. Only one left. Unfortunately, the other guys that we ended up taking did not really perform, but point is, ended up having at least one guy survive, and Monfils around 16-1. But overall, a couple of fun matches, a couple of straightforward matches, so it was a pretty decent blend there in Auckland. Moving on to Adelaide. So getting into the actual, I should say get into the round of 16 matches here. You saw Paul ended up getting into a bit of a war there against Guinard. Hadn't played in a while, though, so not a total shock, but he ended up winning in 3. Ended up seeing Ichikata outlast Nakashima as he won in 3 sets there. Very competitive, but he got the job done. So Felix dropped the first set comfortably to Kazo and then came back and he won the next 2. Giron beat Chapo, though, comfortably in straight sets. Kokonakis won an absolute war against Echeverry. Late ending, but he got the job done there in a 3-hour marathon. Korda ended up beating Fekina in straight sets in his first match back post elbow surgery, so props to Korda for getting the job done there. Kekmanovic ended up beating O'Connell again, and then you ended up seeing Bonzi beat Lee in straight sets in the final match there. So I'd say unlike Auckland, actually, you know what? No, it was a pretty decent blend. You had a couple of 3-setters, a couple of drama-filled matches, and a couple of very straightforward ones. Not really much else to add. And point is, overall, a pretty solid collection of matches in both Adelaide and in Auckland. Now, to get into some other tennis, I'd say, new storylines quickly. Want to point out that Kyrgios is probably not going to play in the Aussie Open because he got injured again, so he's probably going to end up sitting out So just keep that in mind. Seems like it's not likely. He hasn't officially been ruled out of the Australian Open, but it does seem like he's up against it. So expect to not see Kyrgios in the event. Besides that, Joker and Murray are training together. Murray was not at Brisbane with Joker. He will be there for the Aussie Open in the coach's corner, so keep an eye out for Murray. You might see him in the stands. Besides that, you have some Aussie Open qualifying going on. Nothing too shocking. Fonseca's been destroying everybody in qualifying. I think he beat Wang 6-0 in the first set on Wednesday morning. So point is Fonseca is going to go through qualifying pretty easily, but he can definitely win a couple rounds. He's been crushing it. I think he won a challenger title as well. He has been really, really good, and keep an eye out because he can be a very high riser for the upcoming season. Some win the next gen title without dropping a single match, and now we've seen him carry over into challengers and into qualifying. He's going to be a problem. So just keep that in mind. Fonseca's really good, and he's been looking the part there in the Australian Open. Could be very live to pull off an upset in the first round. Besides that, ended up seeing Leighton Hewitt's son lose in qualifying. Really not that good of a player. He's still young. The point is, though, it definitely has not really clicked for him in his young tennis career. And that's basically it. Not much else to add there. Weird moment in the Norrie match, actually, as he lost in his first matchup, as he accidentally, or I'll put quotes around it, accidentally threw a racket into the stance. Did not get disqualified for it, ended up losing the match anyway, so it didn't really matter. But that was kind of a weird moment there where he kind of flailed his racket there, maybe in frustration, maybe because he's an idiot, but he ended up potentially hitting a fan, and he was not thrown out of the match, which is kind of rare. You figure that it would normally result in a defaulting. Didn't matter once again because he lost anyway, but point is Norrie doing Norrie things, and he ended up losing, and he had a temper tantrum and potentially got himself in danger of being thrown out. So that's kind of one other thing that happened, but nothing else to really add. Once again, feel like it's been a pretty solid collection of matches, decent amount of upsets in both tournaments. Unfortunately, though, the guys that we ended up backing to win the event, most of them ended up losing because of those upsets. But to get into the brief recap of the outrights that we ended up giving out, we had no quarter picks for these events, so keep that in mind. For, though, the actual outrights in Auckland, to remind everybody of what we actually have left. So Shelton ended up losing at 450, lost a marathon to Mensick. Tabila lost a marathon to Basaveretti, so lost those two. But we have Munfee at 16-1. He's a massive favorite against Diaz Acosta in the next matchup. So maybe he can get into the semis, but we have a 16-1 shot who can still win the event. For Adelaide, though, to be honest, not exactly much better. Do have Paul, who's still alive at 370. Leheshka dropped out, so not really worth talking about. Got a refund there. Nakashima lost a marathon to Hichikata, and Nishioka did lose a marathon to Kokonakis in the first match. So either way, once again, not exactly looking too great for the outrights. Do have one person left in both tournaments, one as the pre-tournament favorite in Paul, the other being a longer shot in Munfee. So hopefully one of those two end up cashing or at least making it into the semis of the final, and then we'll go from there. Anyway, though, before we get into the actual preview of the matches for the quarters, do want to remind you once again that we are brought to you by DraftKings because the playoffs are here. Playoffs, talk about the playoffs. You bet we are. Get on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is the key to winning the playoffs, and you can win big by betting on them on DraftKings, the number one place to bet touchdowns. So if you want to end up betting on Lamar, for example, against the Steelers to score, Derrick Henry's going to be a pretty big minus price, but you can go for maybe Mark Andrews. A couple of options, though, in the upcoming games for this weekend. So reminder, when you are ready to place your first bet, try betting on something simple, like a player to score a touchdown. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook and make your pick. And a reminder, you could also get a great deal if you're new to DraftKings. New customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus cash instantly. A reminder, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code SGP. That's code SGP for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets. Once again, a great deal you're not really going to find anywhere else. $200 just by betting $5 is a bargain. And a reminder that when you also bet on DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Just finished previewing, or I should say recapping what happened in the round of 16. Time to get into the actual quarterfinal matches here in Adelaide and in Auckland. Now, for the actual timing, we always do this in chronological order. Auckland does start first, so we're going to cover Auckland first. Now, for the actual preview of the matches, going in order. First match is going to be between Mickelson and Basaveretti. Should be a fun one, actually, a bit of deja vu, faced off in the next gen finals, which Mickelson did win in the group stage in 4 sets. Now, Mickelson's minus 155 after the straight set win against Sonego. Basaveretti, though, is plus 135 off of the win against the defending champion, Tabilo, in a marathon. You're looking at the overall games, minus 2 for Mickelson, plus 2 for Basaveretti. The over-under for actual games is set at 22.5. For the set spread, you have the straight sets win for Mickelson at around plus 165. Basaveretti to win straight sets is plus 275. The over 2.5 sets is plus 130. Now, said before, faced off recently, about a month ago, and you saw Mickelson win in 4. Now, that was a bit different. Kind of weird to fully, I'd say, factor that match in because they do play first to 4 in sets instead of first to 6. So not exactly a fair comparison, but it's the best we got because that was the only matchup they had within the last year. Now, for the actual path of both guys, Mickelson beat Sonego in straight sets, had a marathon, or I should say 1 in 3 against Nagal. Kind of a shock there. He lost the first set, but he came back and he won the last 2 sets comfortably. Overall, though, he has not looked that great so far in 2025, or I should say the calendar year of tennis, because technically a couple of those matches were in 2024, but ended up beating Sonego once again in straight sets. That's the only match he actually won in straight sets. Beat Nagal in 3, lost to Thompson comfortably, and ended up beating O'Connell in a final set tiebreak. So, point is, Mickelson has been a bit vulnerable. Didn't really look that great in the next-gen finals either, so I think he's been fine. Nothing amazing. Basaveretti, though, is dangerous because he's still very young, and if he had a great run at the end of last year in challengers to make it to the next-gen finals, and then that confidence has definitely carried over into 2025 because he's been very solid. So in Auckland, went to qualifying, beat Dzanchil, beat Altmaier, beat Komensanya, and ended up beating Tabilo in 3 sets in the last match. So I do like the overall form that Basaveretti's in. So I'm lose to Monfils in 3 sets in Brisbane. So when they're qualifying there too, think he's been solid for the most part. I think he's going to be a solid pro. And I think when you're looking at the overall form of both guys, I think Basaveretti's arguably in better form. Now, the problem is Mickelson's still been good in the head-to-head. He's 2-1 lifetime. So you are looking at a guy that has done pretty well in the past against his opponent, but it seems like Basaveretti has definitely improved over the last year or so. Now, for the actual matchup, I see a bit of a marathon here. I like the over. I think you're going to see a lot of long rallies, a lot of very competitive tennis, and I think that you're going to see a pretty fun battle where each guy has moments here. Mickelson is no stranger to marathons, and we know Basaveretti's been involved in a couple of 3-setters recently too. So based on that, I like the over in this one. I think for value, I would actually make a case for Basaveretti. I think plus 135 is a decent price, but for the actual, I'd say, prediction, I'll go with Mickelson in 3. I don't mind over 2.5 sets there at plus 130 as my favorite play in that matchup. Moving on to the next one, you have a matchup between Monfils and Diaz-Acosta, one of the bigger favorites on the card here, as Monfils around minus 290. You have Diaz-Acosta at around plus 245. For the spread, minus 3.5 for Monfils, plus 3.5 for Diaz-Acosta. The over-under in games is set at 22. For set spread, you have Monfils in straight sets at minus 110. You have Diaz-Acosta to win a set at minus 120. The over 2.5 sets is plus 155. Now, no head-to-head history between these two. Now, Diaz-Acosta is not really known for being a good hardcore player. In fact, he had not won a main, I'd say, draw match in months. And then he showed up here, and he's looked pretty good. Now, he had a straight set win against Norrie. Mentioned before, Norrie chucked the racket into the crowd accidentally. Put quotes around there. He was a lucky loser, though. Ended up losing qualifying to Nardi. Got the draw in anyway because of all the opt-outs that we ended up having. And then he's made the most of it, beating Norrie and beating Baez in the first 2 matches in straight sets. As for Monfils, he had a massive comeback against Martinez in the first round, and then it looked good against Struff. So Monfils, I think, is definitely the better player, and I think that he definitely is worthy of being a favorite here. Is 290 a bit steep? Maybe, but it comes down to what Diaz-Acosta you're expecting, because he's not a good hardcore player, and the fact is he has not been playing good tennis for the last couple months, and then suddenly won 2 matches in a row. So I don't know really what to make of the Diaz-Acosta run. Could be a bit of, I'd say, a blip where he's having a couple of good matches in a row, but it's not sustainable, and he's going to regress back to the mean. Could be. Monfils, though, after the first set and a half against Martinez, looked very good. I think he should win this. Once again, we gave him out to win the entire tournament. We thought it was going to be bias in the spot, but we liked Monfils anyway. I think Monfils should win. The real question is, do I think that Diaz Acosta can win a set? Because I think that Monfils is going to, once again, outlast Diaz Acosta with his consistency, but can I see Diaz Acosta winning a set here? I can. I don't see much value in this match, to be honest. I think Monfils can get the job done once again in straight sets or in 3. So it is a bit tricky. I really don't have much for this actual match. If I was going to make a case for anything, maybe I'd make a case for Monfils team total over 12.5 games of -135. Because if you get a 7-6 in there or 7-5 and he wins in straight sets, you win. Or if it goes 3, then you look good anyway and have a good chance of winning. So I think I'd go with that if I had to pick something. Probably not going to bet it, though. I already have Monfils as an outright at 16-1, so of course we need him to win this match anyway. Going to pass, though. Not a fan of the price, so I am going to go to other matches instead. Moving on to the next match in Auckland. You have the last match of the Wednesday card. You have one match on Thursday morning. So you have Baena taking on Bergs. Now, Bergs was a qualifier. Looked very good in qualifying. Ended up winning in a couple matches that were competitive against Comasanya and against Crania Busta, so nice wins there. Then he ended up entering the main draw and beat two pretty underwhelming players in straight sets. Beat Beecroft, who I don't really know, and beat Nardi, who I'm not a fan of, in straight sets. So Bergs has won 6 straight sets, despite going through qualifying. As for Baena, he's looked pretty good. Beat Cerundolo in straight sets in the last round. Beat Altmaier in 3 in the first round. So Baena, we know, is not a great hardcourt player. However, he's been good here. Now, I do have to add some caveats, though. Altmaier, not a great hardcourt player either. That was a marathon, which he ended up winning. Now, the Cerundolo match was interesting because Cerundolo, we know, has upside. He's a top 30 guy in the world, but he has not played in a while, or he had not played in a while. He had not played since November. So once again, a pretty long layoff there for Cerundolo, who can be very streaky at times. So the point is, it seemed like Cerundolo was out of it with a little bit of rust. I think that once again, it was a pretty favorable draw for Baena when you factor in the fact he was actually playing some matches beforehand where Cerundolo was not. Cerundolo went in cold, and he looked like it. So Baena, once again, nice win there, but not exactly sold on his hard court skills anyway. Entering the event, he had lost 4 straight. Actually, he had lost 5 straight. No, sorry. No, so that was one doubles match. He had lost 4 straight singles matches on hard court, so he's been playing better, but he's still not a great hardcourt player. I think Berg's objectively the better hardcourt player between the two of them. So I think that the price is definitely, I'd say, affordable on Berg's. Berg's around -165. You have Baena at +145 for the game spread. You have -2.5 for Berg's, +2.5 for Baena. You can find 1.5, though, at -130 if you do want it for Bergs. For the over-under in games, 22.5, -110 apiece. For set spread, Bergs in straight sets is around +160. Baena to win in straight sets is +300. The over 2.5 sets is +125. This matchup could go 3, but I do think Bergs is the better player. Bergs has been playing well lately, and I do think that he's a young player. It's taken some time to get going, but it seems like his firepower and his overall, I'd say, serve should be the difference in this matchup. Baena, not a great server. I think Bergs will generate some breakpoint chances more than Baena will, and that's enough for me. Give me Bergs -1.5 games here as my play in this matchup. Moving on to the last match in Auckland for the quarters. You have a matchup between Mensik and Borges. Now, for the matchup here, Mensik decent favorite. Mensik is around he's in the 200 range. -225. You have Bergs at around +195. For the actual game spread here, -3.5 for Mensik, +3.5 for Burgess. The actual games here, Borges, the over 2.5 sets here is +140. You're looking at the game total being at 22.5. For set spread, you have Mensik in straight sets at +110. You have Borges to win a set at -140. So for the matchup here, rematch actually of the U.S. Open from this past year, where Mensik did win in 5. So it was a competitive match. Mensik lost in 5. Apologies there. He was up 2-1. Then he ran out of gas after the 4th set breaker, and he got bageled in the 5th. Now, you're looking at Mensik, who's had a pretty decent start to the year, as he lost a pretty, I'd say, tough match there to Pericard in Brisbane, as he lost 7-5, 7-6. Did beat Lahovic and Kukushkin in the first 2 matches before that. Then in this tournament, he's had a couple of wars, beat Busta in 3 and beat Shelton in 3. It's a good competition, but he was able to survive 7-5 both times in the 3rd set. So as for Borges, he's had a couple of marathons as well. However, Weaker competition. Beat Darderi in 3, who's not a good hardcourt player at all, and beat Navone in 3. Now, Navone's been better on hardcourt lately, so I will give him props there. Still not a good server whatsoever, so Borges definitely got the job done, but didn't look great in the process. He's had a pretty weird start to the year. Beat Boo in 3, lost to Munar in straight sets in Hong Kong, and then he ended up having the 2 marathon wins against 2 clay specialists, basically. So the point is, I think Mensik is going to get the job done here. I think he is the better player. Think that Mensik is, once again, the much better server in this matchup. But Borges, I think, is just not in great form. Yes, he was able to survive despite losing the first set in the first 2 rounds, but Navone and Darderi definitely a step down in competition compared to Mensik on hard court. Give me Mensik here, who has been, once again, playing good tennis so far this season. Did lose to Paracard. Close match, though, 7-5, 7-6. No shame in that. He's been winning the matches he should be winning, and I think that this is a match he should win. I don't mind plus 110, actually. I think that Mensik has the ability to win this in straight sets. I think he can get the job done, and I do think that it's a pretty good price. Once again, Borges has been playing pretty average tennis lately, and he was able to outlast guys that are not great for their, I'd say, they're not known for their hardcourt skills. I think Mensik is once again the better player, and I think that he'll get revenge for that US Open loss. Give me Mensik in straight sets at plus 110 for the value. Then before we get into the actual preview of the quarterfinal matches here in Adelaide, I want to remind you once again that we are brought to you by Unlock Fantasy, because they have a lot of great items on their pick'em menu. They have a lot of great ways to make money as well with Profit Boost and Gimme Pick'ems. They have the Best Ball Playoff contest, which is live now. Going Tournament is now live. $2 million in prize up for grabs just for a $25 entry. NFL, college football, college basketball, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, and more. You can add specials and boost on Reflex entries for the upcoming entry. I think I'll do something for the NFL card. You know what? I'll go with Russell Wilson higher. Half an interception. Think he's going to throw one. He's been a mess lately. I think Baltimore can definitely capitalize. Had a pick 6 against him a couple weeks ago. I think Russell Wilson's going to struggle in this playoff game. Give me the higher half a pick for Russell Wilson in this upcoming game. Reminder, though, when you do sign up for your new account, use the promo code SGPN. Especially getting first time deposit offer up to 1K. Bonus cash on fantasy promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Just finished previewing the quarterfinals in Auckland. Time to move on to the quarterfinals in Adelaide. Starting off with the first match on the card, you have Paul against Hijikata. Now, Paul's a pretty big favorite, rightfully so, pre-tournament favorite. Now, he is currently available at minus 410, biggest favorite on the board, and you're looking at Hijikata being a plus 330. Now, for the game spread, you have minus 4.5 for Paul, you have plus 4.5 for Hijikata. For the over-under, you have 21.5. Now, for the set spread, Paul in straight sets is minus 130. Hijikata to win a set is even money. The over 2.5 sets is plus 160. Now, Paul's played one match this year. Was not easy. Once again at a marathon there against Guinard, which he won in 3. Now, Hijikata's been good. Was able to beat Gofen 6-1, 6-2. Was able to beat Nakashima in 3 sets. Did lose in qualifying to Walton, but he won the first set 6-1 in that one. I think the game spread's too big here. I think Paul, no head-to-head history, by the way. I think Paul, of course, is better. You could argue that Russ was a factor because he had not played since the singles match in Paris, actually. So he had not played since October. Russ potentially was an issue, but Hijikata's been good. I think that it's a lot of games. I think 4.5's a lot. I think Hijikata can rally with Paul. I think he's going to lose. He might lose in straight sets. But 6-4, 6-4 is pretty realistic here. Could get a breaker in there as well. Maybe even a 3-setter. 4.5 feels a bit high. Hijikata, of course, is the home country guy. Does have the crowd atmosphere at his disposal. Think it'll help him out. Give me Hijikata plus the 4.5 games in this matchup. Think Paul's going to win, but the spread feels disrespectful. Give me the dog here for the value. Moving on, you have Felix against Giron. For this one, Felix is around minus 150. You have Giron at plus 130. You have minus 2 for Felix. You have plus 2 for Giron. The over-under is set at 23. For set spread, you have Felix in straight sets at around plus 155. You have Giron in straight sets at plus 325. For the over-under, you have the over 2.5 sets at plus 125. The under is minus 155. Now, decent head-to-head history here. Felix is 4-1 a lifetime. However, there is one caveat. They've only faced off one time on hard court. Faced off in the Olympics last year. Felix won. That was on clay. Faced off in Halle in 2022. Felix won in 3. That was on grass. Faced off in Rome in 2022. Felix won in straight sets on clay. Faced off in Halle again in 2021. Felix did win in straight sets. That was in 2021. Now, faced off, though, in Tokyo in 2023. And Giron did win 6-1, 6-4. So the point is, Felix, though, has not played much tennis lately and has not been that great. He ended up beating Fritz in the United Cup. Good win there. Did lose to Chorich, though, after winning the first set via bagel which is concerning. Then showed up here, got buried in the first set by Kazo 6-1. They came back and he won the next 2 sets. Giron, though, has been good. Giron was able to beat Chapo in straight sets, beat Vukic in 3 in the first round, lost to Imber. In pairs, did beat Shang, though, in 2 tie breaks, beat Kekmanovic, and beat Gaston as well. So even though it was dating back to last year, you're looking at Giron winning 5 of his last 6, actually. So Giron's been in good form. I think that Giron's alive to win it. I think Felix has been pretty inconsistent for most of his career, and I feel like it's a pretty good spot for Giron to sneak up on him and maybe get the win outright. I think it's a good price, though. I think that minus 150 is a little bit too big. I don't mind maybe going for a team total over. If you want to argue for a war, I don't hate that. But give me Giron for the value. I think Felix did not look great in the first round against Kaza. Kaza, I think's fine. He's more of a challenger guy, and he got buried in that first set. I think that, once again, Giron, who beat him on the only hardcore meeting in the head-to-head, can get the job done again at a pretty decent price. Give me Giron for the value. I'll take a swing there. Moving on, to the next match, you have Kekmanovic against Bonzi. For this one, you're looking at Kekmanovic being favored. He's around minus 140. You have Bonzi at plus 120. For the game spread, you have minus 1.5 for Kekmanovic, plus 1.5 for Bonzi. For the games here, 23 for the total. For the set spread, you have Kekmanovic winning straight sets at plus 180. And Bonzi to win in straight sets is plus 275. The over 2.5 sets is around plus 125. Now, for the matchup here, Kekmanovic has been a head case for most of his career, but the upside is definitely there, and he's shown it in this event, as he's won all 4 sets, beat Bublik 6-4, 6-2, beat O'Connell 7-6, 6-2. He's been good, so no real complaints there. As for Bonzi, beat Lee 2 in straight sets in the last match, beat McCabe in the first match there in straight sets. Actually ended up beating Fognini as well in qualifying, as Fognini ended up dropping out with an injury. So Bonzi's been good so far this year. So I won a title at the end of last year. Point is, though, I do think that Kekmanovic is better right now based on current form. I see a close matchup, though. I think he'll get at least one breaker here. I don't mind the over in games at 22.5. He could find it. Don't mind the team total over for whoever thinks going to win the matchup. I'll go with Kekmanovic, though. Team total over 12.5 at minus 130. Could go to a 3-setter. Could feature a breaker. A couple ways to get there. Think it'll be a close matchup, though. Not picking a straightforward one. I don't mind the over 2.5 sets, but the price is too cheap, so I'll go with the team total instead. Think it'll be close, but I do like how Kekmanovic has played, and the serve's been good here, and I do think that Bonzi has been pretty fortunate with his weak competition, beating once again the likes of Lee 2, who's mostly a challenger guy, McCabe, challenger guy, and then Fognini retired. So he hasn't really faced anybody worth a damn in the event. I'll go with Kekmanovic to get the job done at around minus 140. Maybe for the game spread, minus 1.5 instead of minus 110. But I think you'll get maybe a breaker in there. So I'll go with the team total over 12.5 for Kekmanovic as my main play for that one. Moving on to what could be the potential underrated match of the day. You have a matchup between Kokkinakis and Korda. For this one, you have Korda being a favorite, as Korda is around minus 140. You have Kokkinakis at plus 120 for the game spread. You have minus 1.5 for Korda. You have plus 1.5 for Kokkinakis. For the over-under in games, 23. For set spread, you have Korda in straight sets at plus 175. You have Kokkinakis to win in straight sets at plus 260. For the over-under sets, you have the over 2.5 sets at plus 130. Now, Korda's played one match since returning from injury. He was able to beat Fekina in straight sets, as he did look good in that matchup. So, overall, Korda did pass the first test with flying colors, winning 6-3, 6-3. As for Kokkinakis, he's had a couple marathons, beat Nishioka in 3 and beat Echeverry in 3 with a final set breaker. So point is, Kokkinakis is always involved in a marathon or two in an event, and that has not been any different in this one. As for the head-to-head history, though, Korda is 3-0. Faced off in 2022 twice, in Delray and in Indian Wells. Korda won both those in straight sets. Because of last year, though, in DC, and Korda did win in basically 2.5 sets because there was a retirement there from Kokkinakis. Kokkinakis had a couple match points, had a blown easy shot at the net in that second set, then fell apart, and Korda came back and won, en route to winning the title, actually, I believe. So point is, Korda ended up getting fortunate to win the actual match there, as Kokkinakis should have won that last head-to-head meeting. But the concern that I have here is fatigue with Kokkinakis. With the 3-hour marathon against Echeverry, will he be able to actually, I'd say, recharge his batteries in time for this matchup? I don't know. I'll tell you what, though, Korda, I think, is a bad matchup for Kokkinakis. He's a pretty good server, but he can rally, and I do think he can definitely force some unforced errors from Kokkinakis. I see a bad spot for Kokkinakis here. I don't mind the minus 140. I get that Kokkinakis has been good here in Adelaide in the past, and I get that he, of course, has home country advantage with the Australian crowd, but the fatigue's a concern, and I think that Korda is right now looking like the better player. I understand Korda just came back from injury. He had no issues at all against a pretty dangerous player at times in Fekina. I think he's the better player here, and I think that the extra, I'd say, energy, having a pretty easy win previously in the last round while Kogonakis had a war in his hands, I think that'll help out Korda. Give me Korda in this one, maybe in 3 sets, but I think minus 142 cheap. I'll go with him to get the job done in this one. Now it's time for the actual lock and dog picks for the show. By the way, quickly, I want to just give a shout out to all the people in the comment section. A reminder, we have a live stream, so you can jump in if you catch it live. Shout out to Uneducated, who's on every episode. Shout out to him for stopping by. Shout out to Roby. Thanks for stopping by. Maddie, I feel your pain. Of course, with Shelton. It was a heartbreaker. Lost a marathon, though, in 3. And what a Beantown. Thanks for stopping by. Hopefully, you do enjoy the show. Anyway, time for the actual lock and dog picks for the show. Starting off with the lock on this one, I am going to go with the Bergs and Baena match. I'm going to go with Bergs minus 1.5 games here at minus 130. Bergs is the much better server in this matchup, and I think that he should be able to hold more easily. But Bergs went through qualifying. Couple of tough matches, though. Komasanya made a good run in Wimbledon last year. Pretty underrated player. I think that Bergs is a guy that, once again, has shown that he can definitely threaten top-tier players at times, but I think that you're looking at a guy who's pretty underrated, having a tough match against Komasanya, beat Busta. Busta's a good player. I think that's a pretty solid qualifying run. Then he had 2 easy path victories in the main draw, but you're looking at Baena, who had a marathon against Altmaier, who's not very good on hardcourt, and ended up beating Sarundalo, who had not played in months, who's also very streaky. I think it's a bad matchup for Baena. Baena might be able to force a deciding set, but I think you're looking at Bergs, who's won 6 straight sets here, including qualifying, and Baena had a pretty weak path to this overall, I'd say, part of the event. I think it might be a close match, but I think that you're looking at Bergs getting the job done here. I think he'll hold more easily. I think Baena has not really been tested that much in terms of talent, but he was able to surpass or get past, Sarundalo, who had not played for a while, and Altmaier, I don't think is very good on hardcourt. Give me Bergs to get the job done, minus 1.5 games here at minus 130 for what I think is a good price with the better hardcourt player. Moving on to the actual dog, going to go to the matchup between Basaveretti and Mickelson. Give me the over 2.5 sets here at plus 130. Now, Mickelson has been dropping sets quite frequently, actually. He's lost at least 1 set in 9 of his last 10 matches. I did skip over the Shang match in the next-gen finals because Shang played 1 set and quit, so I can't really factor it in. Point is, Mickelson, though, has been dropping sets left and right. Basaveretti, same exact boat. Basaveretti's dropped at least 1 set in 7 of his last 10. So both guys not really winning many matches convincingly, and that could result in what could be a marathon. And they faced off a couple weeks ago in the next-gen finals. Yes, that is 1st to 4, not 1st to 6 for sets, but they split the first 2 sets. Point is, Basaveretti did win a set against Mickelson in the most recent meeting, and I think you're looking at what should be a close matchup, but you're looking at 2 guys that drop sets all the time. Mickelson dropping a set in 9 of 10, Basaveretti dropping a set in 7 of 10. I think plus 130 is a good price. I'll take that over as my dog. So once again, the play of the day here, or I should say the actual lock and dog picks for the episode. Lock's going to be on Bergs, minus 1.5 games against Baena at minus 130. For the dog, it's going to be on Basaveretti and Mickelson over 2.5 sets at plus 130. That's going to wrap it up. Ryan Breck once again for the semifinal matchups here in Adelaide and in Auckland. Until next time, 5-minute Twitter, Reichel Radio. And until then, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.